If you don't change anything, you're not really growing as an artist, right? And so I think as I look back at those old images, it's like, oh man, the lighting is just horrible, or how it's composed is just so weird, or how I color graded the images are just like really odd. And so I think like in those first few years, it's me starting to understand photos, how it interacts with food, but also what my overall style wanted to be, right?
Hey, welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast. I'm your host, Raymond Hatfield, and each week I interview one of the world's most interesting photographers to learn what it really takes to capture beautiful images so that you can start to do the same. In today's Rewind episode, we are talking with food and branding photographer Nate Crawford about capturing images everyone can understand. But first, the Beginner Photography Podcast is brought to you by CloudSpot. Everything you need to build a thriving photography business. Impress your clients, deliver professional experience, and streamline your workflow in one platform. Grab your free forever account today over at deliveredphotos.com and only upgrade when you and your business are ready. Now, in today's episode with Nate, you're going to learn three things. The first is understanding your tool. Nate shares the importance of mastering your camera's settings specifically to adapt to various lighting conditions, which will develop your technical understanding. Two, you're going to learn how to build relationships with brands. You'll learn the nuances of selling your style to brands and how persistence and alignment with a brand's values can better lead to successful partnerships. And three, you're going to learn the emotional power of images. Lastly, we talk about how adding emotion and narrative to your photos, even if it's just food, can transform a simple shot into a compelling story that resonates with viewers. So with that, let's go ahead and get on into today's interview. Nate, I want to know, just easy first question here, like when did you know that photography was going to first play an important role in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't know. So I got like into the industry young, but also old. I feel like, so I was 19, 18 when I first started the food photo sort of journey. And it wasn't really, I knew pretty early on that I really loved it because I really loved to bake and to cook and the food side. And being able to show that process of like taking flour, salt, eggs, and doing something amazing with that and turning it into something delicious really inspired me. And being able to shoot that process was just a whole other world to me of like, oh my God, that's possible. That's so cool. You're able to take a moment within this culinary journey and stop time. And that's so fun. And so I would say probably, oh man, like a few months into my learning to take images, I was like, ooh, I could do this forever as a career. And that was the goal. So
but I want to know, like, so obviously you were baking, you loved to bake. Like, what made you think, you know what, I should really take a photo of this? And then what about that grew into, I'm going to use more than just a cell phone, which a lot of people are okay with, but like, I'm going to do this professionally.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was like, when I was learning to cook and bake, like I would make food and share it with friends and family, right? Of course, that everyone does. But I wanted a way of sharing the food that I made with friends and family who weren't close, right? Like family in other states, whatever. And I just grabbed my iPhone and just snapped a few pics of some cookies I made. And that was the first image I ever took. And there was just something about like composing the image, seeing them on the table there. Like the image itself is horrible, but it's an image that I really love because it's really the first moment of like, ooh, I could do this. Like, this is really interesting. There's something there, right? And so, yeah, so just like seeing that moment just be like frozen in time, which is so unique to me. And so just like, how is that possible? It's so cool. So, yeah.
Looking back at that photo, now that you have the experience that you have today, what do you think it was about that iPhone photo that really stood out to you and, I don't know, made something click in your brain?
I don't know. I think it was just like there was something there. And I don't know, like if it was just the art of composing the image and placing the cookies down, the styling like aspect, or what was it? But it was just something about the whole like emotion behind it of like, oh, I'm gonna style this, I'm gonna take this image. And at the time, I didn't really know where it would take me into being here. And so it's a wild from point to point Z is a wild journey of times I didn't expect it to happen for sure. But there was just something there within that space of like, okay, I just like truly just a feeling of like, oh, I like this. And like this process is fun to me of taking items that I have made, shooting them, and then sharing them. That whole like three-step process really, really inspired me.
I love how you said the word emotion there because it's funny. I don't think that's something that people traditionally think of when they look at food photography. I think
Mhm.
maybe more when you think of like portraits,
Sure.
but when I look at your work, I feel the same way. But
Thank
before
you.
we get into the emotional side of things, I want to stick here with photography and learning photography.
Mhm.
You said you took that first photo with the iPhone. At some point, you had to upgrade to a traditional DSLR or dedicated camera. What was that learning curve like?
Oh, sure. The learning curve was really interesting. So I went from the iPhone to a Canon PowerShot, which is just a point and shoot camera, very like bottom tier of entry, right? But like the camera is really nice because you're able to still like change your ISO, your f-stop, your shutter speed, but like you obviously can't change like any of the lenses, right? But it was a good camera to start out with, so I was able to learn what shooting in raw meant, what changing the ISO did, what changing the shutter speed did when it comes to food images. And I shot with a power shot for probably a year or so. And then I knew I was at a point where it's like, okay, this canvas camera is really good for starting, but I need to do more. I need more options of lenses. I need more options of like just quality of image. And so I upgraded to the T5i, which I shot with for probably 2 or so years after that. Really enjoyed that camera. Like it's just such a powerhouse tool. The TI series is just like fantastic. Anytime I have folks asking me like, "Oh, which camera should I start out with?" And I'm learning all this stuff. I really lean on that series because it's such a fantastic entry level camera. Like it just has everything you need when like you're learning the art form. So really love that. I shot with that all through college, and then after college, I wanted to upgrade again because I was seeing that the camera like the more I was shooting like higher brands or like lifestyle work, it was just not there yet. And so I upgraded to the 6D, really enjoyed that, and shot with that for probably like the next 3 or so years after that for sure. And then this last year, I upgraded to the R5.
Ooh, welcome to the team
So probably in
mirrorless.
what
I said, welcome to team mirrorless.
you know what? I didn't think I would fall this hard for it, but I love it. It's kind of insane the quality jump from going from like the 6D to the R5, just like the quality of image that you're able to get. It's amazing. Canon glass is just fantastic, and they have just like nailed this camera. Well, the R series as a whole, the R6, like all of it is fantastic.
So you had the PowerShot camera, right? And you
Mhm,
had mentioned it helped you learn things like what shooting in RAW meant, how to change your ISO.
mhm.
As somebody coming from an iPhone, like where do these terms come into your ecosystem, especially with something that's more of a just a point and shoot like a power shot? I guess what I'm asking here is that like many people today buy an R5 or an R6 top of the line camera and still only shoot in auto. And here you are with essentially an entry level camera and you decided to dig real deep. So I want to know where did that drive come from? Like were you actively learning or trying to figure out how to take better photos?
Yeah, I think it stems from honestly a need of controlling from like the sense of I want to control over all my art, where I wanted full understanding of the tool I was using in this and how I was shooting it, right? And I think there's artists out there who use automatic who take amazing images, right? But I think for what I was trying to do and how I wanted to learn photos, I knew that learning the confines of your ISO, your f-stop, your shutter speed, and how those three worlds interact and play and change each other was really imperative because not every lighting location is going to be the same, right? And so, really understanding the tool that you're using, in my mind, was really important.
So obviously, like the learning the photography part is, as you said, really important to you. Figuring out ISO, shutter speed, aperture, and how all these things work together. Was there anything within that learning curve that was particularly difficult for you to grasp or understand?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things to sort of understand and learn is lighting how lighting And those settings like play and interact, right? So understanding if I put my light source here, if I stand here, what settings do I need in order to get a well-balanced image, right? And I think there are there's awesome resources and classes and online things to learn all that. But honestly, it's really just trial and error, right? How I learned was just doing it, seeing the image and being like, oh, well, that's not a great image. Well, why is that? Well, let's change this. Let's add this. Let's do other things. I think so much of our art form is literally just doing it and seeing if it works, frankly, and like, okay, well, that did not work. So here's why. And let's find out and then change that, right? For sure.
That is such a great point there. I feel exactly the same. It's like, for me, I definitely learn best by doing, right? Like when it comes to reading or even like watching YouTube videos, like it doesn't matter how good they are. Mm-hmm. If I don't actually do the thing, I don't think I'm going to retain any of that information. I don't think I'm going to learn any of that. Is that pretty similar to you?
I would say so, sure, because I think those channels and those resources are excellent to have, right? Like they're really great, but if you don't implement that info, is just like, well, what's the point? Why did you do this, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's the point? I love that. I want to know now, do you know about how long it's been since you took that first iPhone photo of those cookies?
Yeah, so I took that photo back in June of 2014.
Okay. So it's been a number of years, right? It's been a number of years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In this time, in this experience that you've gathered over these years, right? You've really dedicated a lot of resources in your time and, who it is, who you are to becoming a photographer and taking the best photos possible. And today, just by looking at your images, I mean, I'm not a food photographer, but just by looking at your images, I think world class right here, right? Fantastic images. Over that time, I want you to think back to some of those earliest photos when you first got that power shot, right? Were there any particular elements that stood out to you as, like, now looking back as like, oh, this is an amateur mistake. This is an amateur photo right here for something that you would do totally different today?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. 100%. Ironically enough, this last month when I was about deep cleaning my laptop and hard drive, I came across a hard drive from like years back with all these images from like my first few years shooting. And I was just like, ooh, yes, perfect. And you look back, and I think as artists, we don't look back on images we took 10 years back, a year ago, then we're not really learning. We're not really growing if we don't look and see like, oh, well, I would have changed this. I would have styled this like this. And if you don't change anything, you're not really growing as an artist, right? And so I think as I look back at those old images, it's like, oh man, the lighting is just horrible, or how it's composed is just so weird, or how I color graded the images are just like really odd, or there's like a number of mistakes, clear, obvious mistakes of like, I think me trying to learn photos, but also learn a style that I really enjoyed and a style that made me really enjoy the process. And so I think like in those first few years, it's me starting to understand photos and how it interacts with food, but also what my overall style wanted to be, right? Because like I would see images on Instagram and be like, ooh, I want to do that. And then go and shoot something and it would just not match up, right? Because those images from what I'm seeing and how I'm shooting are just, the quality isn't there yet. The understanding and education are not there yet, right?
Yeah, I think a few years ago I had on a photographer, his name is Mark Silber, and he said that difference between seeing a photo that you like and that you want to capture and the photo that you actually capture is called the creative gap, right?
Oh, yeah.
So as time goes on, all we can do is try to close that creative gap. So were you taking the same approach of looking at your images after a shoot and thinking, this didn't work well, or this did work well, here's what I can change next time?
I think at sometimes I would shoot things and be like, oh, that was not it. And other times I feel like I would just be so like delusional, like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever done. Like I made art today. And as I see back, it's like, oh, this is awful. like there's so many technical issues in these images. But I think that's sort of the beauty of our of our art form is that you are always learning and like you're always seeing a path. And I think for every photo I've ever done, I've learned new things on those shoots. And so as I grow and as I shoot even more, even now today, I'm still learning. I'm still learning new things and new styles, new processes. And I think that's what makes this industry so exciting, right?
Do you have one shoot that stands out to you maybe as like you thought in the moment, like killed it, made art today, and then now that you look back, it's almost like, ugh, I wish I didn't shoot that.
Oh man.
I've got a few of those, which is why I always got to ask.
It's tough because I don't think I ever really like cringe or be like, I wish I didn't do that because I sort of believe that like every photo is for a reason and you take stuff in order to learn. I think there's shoots I've done and styles I've taken, which now my style has so evolved that they don't really match anymore. And so it's like, this doesn't really work well with my approach to understanding of lighting, composing an image, food styling, all that. But I think there is like one shoot where I was starting like actually to do like food, like lifestyle images where there was like town involved. And that shoot was a product, all this food. And so I spent the entire day on like prepping a whole meal. We took all this food out to this one park and we had like a table there. We set everything up. We did all the photos. Talent showed up. They ate everything. They left. And I remember calling my parents at the time and being like, I know what I want to do in life. I want to do exactly this. Because there's just something about creating that moment in time that isn't real but feels real. And the balance of like warmness of like community. Because like that style of shooting to me really encapsulates everything I love about food. It's the community aspect, it's the sharing aspect, it's the food as kind of a language where everyone can speak it. And like you don't need context in order to understand it, right? And those elements are all in those images. And so I feel like that was really the moment where I knew like, okay, I really want to take this to the pro tier and like a full-time tier. Like I could do this job forever.
Can I ask what you went to college for?
So I went to school for hospitality management, which isn't anything close to photos. But why, and so when I was in college, I worked in like hotels, events, and I love the industry. There's something about the industry that I just like really enjoy. There's issues within the industry that I have issues with and why I left the industry. But, there's something very special within the hospitality industry that I love even now. I think you're able to make a moment out of anything, right? And make a guest day out of any moment, right? But I think there's something very powerful in that. And so I feel like that sort of energy is what I bring into my photos, where it's less about here's a plate of pasta, but here's a narrative we're trying to tell, and here's a feeling we're trying to invoke, and here's this hospitality energy that we're trying to convey throughout all of our images, right? And so I feel like that's sort of where my grounding in art comes from, is that sort of need of hospitality, right?
Wow, that got a lot deeper than I was expecting right there.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I love that. Well, the question that I was going to ask after that was, a lot of people go to college for something, and then at a later point, they want to pursue photography, but kind of feel like they're like, oh, I already spent all this time. I already invested all this money on this thing, but now I want to go this way. But I love what you said there about like, no, you know what? I'm still taking a lot of the things that I learned, a lot of those lessons, and then still applying it to this new thing here being photography. And as I said earlier, like when I look at your images, and I emailed this to you, it's like I feel joyous, right? Like I can't think of a time. I guess if I were to have to explain food photography, I don't think joyous would be a word that I would use. And yet consistently all across the board on your images. And I want to know, like, was this intentional? Did you kind of plan that artistic side of things, or was this more organic in the way that you shoot? So could you expand a little bit more on that hospitality idea and how you use your settings to achieve that goal?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with food, we have such an opportunity to sort of create a moment, right? And so how I've always approached photos with food is how I approach my own food as I cook, right? Because I come from a long line of incredible home cooks where they would host these big parties and have family and friends over and holidays. And like food in my family is such an important capstone within our like family ethos, right? So many holidays, events, trips we take, it's all about food. And so my sort of approach to that is from a hospitality standpoint of we're trying to make food in order to serve it, right? Serve guests, brands, what have you. And I think that sort of element of hospitality within our food seeps in through our photos and sort of highlights that feeling. Because I really feel like food, without any sort of emotion behind food, it's just food, right? That like it's just a plate of something. There's nothing really there. And so I think in order to really amp up the party, you have to really bring in that element of like joy, emotion that you feel seeing this food because ultimately food is so much fun. Like I find so much joy in just like shooting with food and chatting about food, eating food, like going to places to eat food and like see food. Like I just enjoy that process. And so anything about food I'm interested in, and I want to highlight that within my work. And so I think like that joy and that passion for this food community is found throughout all of our work. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's expand on that just a little bit because you said food without emotion is just food. So it's figuring out how to bring in those elements that feel warm and inviting and exciting and the joyous there. What was the last shoot that you did? Like what type of food was it?
So really the brand was they're like a protein based, like plant based meat product. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a perfect example because there's absolutely no emotion in plant-based protein. What are those elements that you're referring to bring in that life and that joy and that hospitality feel into those images?
Yeah, so I think with those images, I think it was more of just like trying to find out like what feels homey. And I try and like if our audience here for these images is a home cook audience, trying to make the scenes feel homey and like lived in, right? And so my approach is always like, okay, what elements are we able to bring in here that make these images feel real, right? And so that's putting plates down that like have food already on them, if that's like scattering berries, whatever, parsley around the scene to help like bring in some texture. If that's adding any other like props elements to help tell that food story, you want to add those because it's really going to elevate that sort of raw narrative that you have there. Because like there's plenty of food images out there that are just white table, white plate, the food, that's it. And that's fine. And that can be compelling and beautiful. But a lot of the time you look at those and you're like, okay, that's food, that's fun. But like the one, I think the folks who do food really well, they're able to sort of take a plate and make a feeling out of it. Like the art that I really love, food wise, I see their images just and I feel something as I see them. Like for you, it's joy, but me, it's like oh, I feel inspired, I feel hungry, I feel something else than just like here is a plate. It's like okay, well that's kind of dull and not very interesting. But I think you're able to bring in that element, that human element. I think is really important.
I think you said something there that is going to get lost on a lot of people. And it was thinking about the audience and what feels like and how to achieve what you want through that audience. So obviously for them, it's at home cooked. So what does it feel like to be at home making your own food? What does that look like? And I don't think that's something that many of us would even consider. If I were to go to a nice restaurant and just have this beautiful plate of food given to me, I would take a photo of that. I don't think that I would rearrange anything on the table. And for you to actually have to think like, are we going to use blueberries? Are we going to use tomatoes? Like whatever it is here. I think that's really interesting. That's really important. So food styling is obviously a big part of your job, right? Or at least in the beginning it is. Can you tell me how that works for you today? Are you still doing the food styling or is that a separate position that somebody has?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, so I would say like in food photos, food styling is like hand in hand. You really can't take a really good food image without a really good food style. And there's moments where like, it's only me, so I'm styling the scene and shooting the scene. If it's we're shooting for like a client, a brand, like I'll bring in a food stylist to help me just like style up our scenes, make sure everything looks right. But so it really depends. But I would say probably nowadays I'm bringing in more food stylists than me actually shooting it because like at the scale in which I am shooting, we are I really should only be shooting. I shouldn't be doing other stuff. I should just be doing this. And so I bring in the expert to help me. But I think if your goal is to start shooting food, understanding the confines of food is really important. And understanding how food works, right? So how things saute, how things cook up, how things bake in the oven. Understanding just like the simplicity of how food science works is also important. So I would say like food photos, styling, and food science, those kind of all play within this industry.
All right, I'm going to grab from your experience here then. And next time I go out to a local restaurant, there's a restaurant here in Indy called Milk Tooth, which is the craziest name for a restaurant.
I've never been.
Oh my gosh.
So I wanted to go. So when we were in Indy, so side note here. So when my partner and I were at Indy last year, we wanted to go twice. And me just being like, I'll just show up. It'll be fine. Like, it won't be bad. I think we showed up like Saturday morning, a 2-hour wait. Like, yeah. Okay, that's perfect. I'll come back on Sunday. It'll be easier. Show up again, 2-hour wait. And like there, you can't like call in and say, hey, I want to reserve. You just show up and I didn't know this. And so I'm like, okay, well, that won't work. So I haven't been, but I want to go so badly.
So then let me ask you, next, when you do get to go, right, you're not bringing the fancy camera, you're just bringing your iPhone, you get the food. What are you doing with the camera? What are you doing with the stuff around you to ensure that that photo really has an impact?
Yeah, I think whenever you're shooting in a restaurant space, I think it's really important to find the best lighting. And so if my intent is to shoot the food, like asking to sit near a window where you're going to get the most amount of like daylight, right? Because a lot of the time, like in these spaces, the overhead lighting, the ambient lighting is garbage. It's awful. And there's really no way to really bring out the food anymore with that style of lighting. There's folks I know who like bring in their own like handheld. It's like a square little box light that they'll like hold up behind the food, near the food, like so if they're in like a dark space, they're still able to like film and shoot without like really high ISO. It's wild. But I don't typically do that because I feel like when I'm out to eat dining, I'm just so enthralled by like the food process. I really don't take photos that often. And even if I do, they're mostly snapshots for like my stories on Instagram, frankly. There's rarely ever I'm shooting. I'm like, oh, like in feed posts would look amazing, but just more of like Instagram stories.
But I mean, do you take any additional measures just to make sure that even though it's just going on Instagram stories, maybe you'll move the salt shaker a little closer or change the fork or something to get the most out of it?
Definitely it's spacing for sure. I feel like so much of like the tablescapes is all about spacing and how we space things and which props we're adding in. And so like there's been times where we're out to brunch and I'm like, wait, everyone, I want a photo. And we all like style our little plates and style our scenes and then we snap and then we eat. So moments like that for sure.
Beautiful. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one who does stuff like that.
Yeah.
I want to transition now a little bit into the business side of things because I think Instagram brought rise to everybody can take a photo of their lunch with their iPhone. But as a business, you take it to that next level and you have to worry about things like getting paid and making money and things like this. So I also think that a lot of new photographers are very unaware to the whole B2B space for business to business. Can you walk me through how the process of pitching yourself to another business works?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Ironically about me is that like, even though I do love photos, I love the shoot days, I love editing, I love all of it. The one aspect that I could do forever is like the selling process, like finding brands, having calls, selling myself, our value to brands, and then having them sign, like having a brand, having a pitch and having them sign, like it's such a feeling. You're like, yes, euphoria. Like there's no other feeling like that. It almost feels like a win, right? And so I think selling yourself to two brands is challenging. There's colleagues of mine who share over and over again of how challenging it is to like approach brands and sell yourself and have all these calls. And I think my sort of approach to it is like the worst they'll say is no. There is no harm in emailing a person, sending a DM on Instagram saying, "Hi, I'm so and so. Here's my work. Here's the value I'm able to bring you. How about we chat?" There's no harm in that. And I think aligning yourself with brands that match your style and your goals and your ethics are really important too. And it can be challenging. I think what folks don't realize is that in order to get into this industry, it's so much of that process of like cold selling. It's so much of just trying to break into an industry that's challenging. There's many large brands who have their own guys who do their own photos, or they're the third party ad agencies who have their own contacts. So like it really is just like throwing darts and hoping stuff sticks, for sure.
What's the key? Is it just consistency?
I think like it's a number of things. I think it's both having a really strong base of work, right? It's like having a strong portfolio of work saying, here's our work I've done for other brands. Here's what value I'm able to bring you. It's literally just emailing them. There's so many folks who I feel like just stop before they even start because they just don't email the folks or don't like take like the time to connect with brands and like build those relationships. It's just like there has to be that sort of drive in order to help that, right? And it's challenging for sure. I mean, like it can be a lot. You are trying to pitch brands. I know when I was starting out, like I would cold email brands with like paragraphs long of just stuff, just like of who I was, where I was at, why I love their brand, why I love photos, like just like paragraphs long. And why anyone even responded to me was wild to me, but they did. And it's starting that and learning that process and like learning that sort of like the sales hat on and being like, no, like my work is good enough in order to sell to you people. And if they say no, if they say, hey, we're not interested, we don't have enough funds, we don't have enough time, okay, whatever. And just being like, okay, awesome, we'll all be in touch like soon if you're interested. If not, then fine. Have to just move on from that.
Well, I think a lot of people maybe aren't as in love with the selling process as you, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like oftentimes for myself, I question how much follow-up I should have, right? Mm-hmm. So you said that these are some big brands, right? Sometimes you reach out to people and you have to try to form a relationship. Mm-hmm. Do you have a follow-up process for if they don't respond? Do you respond once? Do you follow up 10, 20 times? Like, what is that like?
Yeah, so I love this because follow-up game is what will make or break you in this industry. But I cannot tell you the number of brands that I have had signed who I followed up with 3 or 4 times. And after the 4th email, they're like, oh, sorry, we had issues or we had this or whatever. There's a reason, right? And so they're like, and so I think there's no harm in following up. I would say like my strategy is, and my sort of approach is, I will stop until they tell me to stop, right? So I'm not emailing them every day. That's insane. But like I'll send out an email, wait a week. If there's no response, I'll follow up there. And I kind of have like a 3-strike rule where I'm like, okay, well, if I followed up 3 times and no answer, then like it's obvious like you're not interested for any reason. You're just not like interested. And so I'm like, okay, well, thank you for your time, but it's obvious you're not interested. Goodbye. And that's the email I end on. And it literally is just, so I have a spreadsheet of the brands who I'm trying to pitch to, or brands who have emailed me, like asking me for work. And I have a little tally of like, okay, well, I followed up on this date here, 1st time, 3rd time, whatever. And if I hit that 3rd time, it's over. It's like, okay, goodbye. Because I just don't have the time to keep queuing up emails to you if you're not interested.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. This is just kind of a side question. When it comes to the follow-up, say those emails that you send back, right, those follow-up emails, Are those more like canned responses or are those pretty personalized for the brand?
It depends on what stage we're at. Like we're at a stage where they're signed, the contract's already been sent out. Those emails are a little bit more like personalized and like, hey, like if you want to do a call and I can answer anything, so more of those emails. But if it's a brand who emailed me through our site and we haven't had any call and they're just interested solely in price, it's a stock email I send. But there's times where I don't have time to send emails to everyone that's like, hello, how are you? It's literally just like, here you go, stock email, boom.
Yeah.
Because I just can't. And there's times some clients, I'm sorry, this may sound wrong, but there's some clients, some like potential brands who don't deserve that like respect because they don't respect you.
Mm-hmm.
So why should I bend over backwards for a brand who emails me and uses my wrong name? They don't even say my name. They spell my company name wrong. Like, why should I respect that? I don't. And so I don't. And so the brands that do respect me, like I'll respect them, right? And so I will follow up. I'll make sure that like, because I think so many times, so in school and hospitality management, my goal was to work in like the advertising side of hospitality. And so after school, I worked for hotels and F&B groups, where I would do the advertising, the media side of those brands. So I have experience on both sides of those aisles, right? So I sort of approach it from, there's some contacts at brands who they're horrible at responding to emails. They just are. And they will be. And like, if you don't follow up like one or two times, they won't answer you, frankly. Well, there's others who are very responsive, who are responding to emails instantly. And so it's a really wide range. And so being in the industry and understanding the types of managers and advertising folks you'll work with helps me understand like how I'm able to speak that language, understand like what value they need, right? So as I'm emailing them, as I'm sort of trying to pitch myself, I'm able to speak in final results of like, if you book these images, if you get the short form content, you're able to do X, Y, and Z with that. And that's through advertising, through organic, through whatever. And so being able to speak that language is important for sure. And it's helped me as well, for sure.
I could see how that could be very helpful. And I totally get that. Like if you get an email that's just where they get your name wrong, like if somebody gets my name wrong, like whenever I go to Starbucks, for some reason, they always write Brandon on the cup, which probably tells me that I'm saying my name wrong. But regardless, like that person is no longer my friend. Like I don't like that person for the rest of the day. So I get that. I totally get that. Before we wrap up here, because we're getting to the end of our time, I'm always interested in knowing, because what's the phrase? Hindsight is 20/20, right? So knowing what you know now, I would love to know if you could take a time machine back 8 years, right? After you took that iPhone photo of the cookies and you thought, wait a minute, I could make a go at this. If you could go back to that moment and tell yourself anything, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, that's tough, man. I'm torn because I feel like our journeys are meant for a reason, right? I think we are on these paths because life, what have you, whatever. I don't know if I would change anything per se. I think I would tell myself that like you're going to take really horrible photos, and that is okay. You're going to make stuff that isn't good. You're going to make horrible mistakes within your company, the brands you shoot for, talent you work with, everything. Like you will make errors along the way, but just keep going. These like mistakes are not the end of the world. Well, what's stressing you out right now won't really matter in like a year. And to understand too that not every client will last forever. I think when I was first starting out, I thought that after I would get like a brand that they would be here forever. And that's just not how it works. Contacts change, folks are laid off, folks are fired, things change. And so with those changes, you have an opportunity to either keep them on or lose them. And there's moments where I've had brands, in 2020 with COVID, like I had a brand I shot for every month. And when March hit, from March until like December, I contacted their chain 7 times.
Wow.
And it was a whole other person I was chatting with. First gal was laid off. Other gal was cut, like true, like boom, 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 boom. And by round 7, the gal who I was emailing with was like not interested in any of my work, was like, oh no, we're good. We have other folks that we're hiring in. And so there's moments like that, which are like really tough at times, because you're like, man, like they were a good brand to shoot for. But not every client's forever, and every client has like their season with them. There's a whole other brand that I used to shoot for like 5 years, and they were like my top performing brand, who would work like every year. We would do all these shoots throughout the year, and the contact left and the no gal started, and I did not mesh well with our styles and how we worked, and she cut ties. And so it's just like, so you have these moments of like, not like heartache, but like heartbreak. It's like, oh man, like 5 years is a long time to work with a brand, and to have that just cut, knowing that it's okay. You'll find other work, you'll find other brands, and there are seasons for every client. And to just enjoy the time you have with the client right now, because it could last 10 years, it could last a day. Things change for a variety of ways all the time. And that's okay. That is the industry, and that's how this game works.
That was quite a journey we just went on right there.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I told you it'll be a journey.
Nate, I don't know how to end it any better than that. That was phenomenal. And I really think that's going to resonate with a lot of people as well, mainly because it's so easy to get discouraged. Just as a wedding photographer, I feel like every time a couple says either you're too expensive or we're going to go a different route, it's like, oh, man. But
heartbreaking.
It is, but that idea of knowing like there's going to be more, like this isn't going to be the one, that really does help.
Sure, because I had like a brand this last year who we were shooting for the monthly, and this last year we had like a full plan of like a year contract. It was in the works, it was in the talks. I was like, yes, we love this. And for the year they had to cut ties because their funding got slashed, and I was like, and trying to explain that. It feels like a breakup. It's like, yeah, it shouldn't feel like one, but it's like we had something here and now it's just gone. Like, what happened? And so there is a grieving process, I feel like, where you're just like, man, like that sucks. Like, no, I wanted this to happen. But, clients will come and go, but your talent and your work is still there. So
that's perfect. I said earlier, I don't know how to end it any better than that, but that last sentence right there, that was it. Nate, before I let you go, I know there's going to be listeners who are going to be interested in finding out more about who you are and see some of your work online. Where can they go to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram at Captures by TKCo. The same for our site, and TikTok as well, where we're discussing all the young kids on the internet. And that's where we're at. We're posting a lot about like behind the scenes, about photo information, client work, all that jazz.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. Start a conversation. Grow together. That is it for this week. Remember, the more that you shoot today, the better of a photographer you will be tomorrow. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.